We're here today on RealAgriculture.com for the beef market update. We're with Ann Dunford from the Gateway Livestock Exchange. Welcome this morning, Ann.
Hi there, Sean.
Ann, this business is definitely an interesting one. I guess there's a lot of things in our control, and then there's a lot of things that are outside of our control. And right now, it seems the things that are outside of our control is what's really causing a lot of stress in our lives.
Well, day-to-day volatility, absolutely. Now, I don't think you'd be wrong to suggest producers have always faced outside influences, whether it was Mother Nature or whatever the case. So there's lots of things that have not been under our control for a long time. But since 2008, of course, when we started to see the financial disaster globally and the recession around the world, we started to understand how much outside markets can impact commodity markets, and in our case, it's obviously live cattle markets on a day-to-day basis. And I think we thought, well, that was a flash in the pan, and we'll get back to quote normal. And I still think today there's no question on a day-to-day basis it's outside markets. Whether it's now we're hearing the news coming out of Europe, whether it was Greece, and then just recently the stories on Hungary, and of course in these cases it's meant weakness in the Canadian dollar as the US dollar is strengthened, but at the same time, once the news story is off the front page again, Canadian dollar strengthens as we kind of go away from the outside news. So Dow Jones goes down, live cattle go down, and that's kind of been the standing case here for the last almost 2 years now. So is it a new reality? Maybe it is, Sean, but again, that's the case we're looking at. Lots of outside influences, but we still got our internal business to deal with.
So why, let's look at, we had Greece, now we've got issues with Hungary. We only ship so much beef into those markets. Why are those markets having so much of an impact on our beef situation?
It's big picture, it's macro picture. It's basically saying what's happening in these other markets has got the world still concerned about the recovery out of the recession. And although I think we're starting to feel better and we see better news all the time out of Canadian stats in regards to recovery from recession, now the talk in the town when we have those days in Europe is there going to be enough hurt in what's going on in Europe to potentially slow down the recovery globally or here in North America. So that's why it's having an impact. And more directly, Sean, it's impacting exchange rates. And of course, we know in Canada what happens with exchange rates impacts and trade. So is it a direct, I'm eating beef or I'm not eating beef? No, it has nothing to do with that.
So it's more of a perception than really reality.
Exactly.
Those consumption numbers we're not really seeing that in the data.
No, this is a big picture financial recovery of the recession. So that's the impacts.
Okay, a little bit on things we can control. What have we been seeing? We haven't talked for about 3 weeks. What can we expect going into the next couple weeks?
Market's very seasonal right now. We've got exactly going on what we would have expected in regards to spring highs are in. We've talked about markets heading lower into the summertime. That's exactly what's happening. From a U.S. perspective, of course, we've got cutouts now starting to come down. Memorial Day is behind us. The buying for Father's Day weekend is now behind us. And so middle meats are starting to come off. We've had the cutout drop down under 160. Of course, 4 weeks ago, it was up over 170. And that's all due to the change in what's happening in the middle meats. Is it a surprise? Absolutely not. Does it mean cattle prices are going to go lower into the summer? Yes. Have we come into the summer about as current as we possibly can? In the U.S., absolutely. They've been selling aggressively. The strong futures market has given everybody lots of reason to sell aggressively. Here in Canada, of course, the conditions, and especially in southern Alberta or all across Western Canada in the feedlots has been disastrous to say the least. So we've got gains coming off these cattle. The bottom line, less tonnage, not exactly a good story from a cost perspective, but there's going to be less tonnage of beef here in Western Canada.
Yeah, I guess is there a reality that because we are so current, we haven't been putting the pounds on like we expected to based on how crazy winter lasted or how short spring has been or whatever season we're in. Is there a potential that we could see a really shortage of fat cattle, or people just bring them forward faster?
No, we tend to bring them forward faster. Does it change the whole production side from a tonnage perspective? Absolutely. Is that bullish to the market? It sure helps. It doesn't probably change our trend, Sean, as far as going lower into the summer, but it most certainly can maybe limit the downside to that trend. So I think that's where I'd be going if I was putting some bucks on where this market goes. I don't think we have a collapse into the summer, but I do think the market's going to grind lower, yes.
And we're at the point of the year where we start to look into what fall may look like. Maybe we'll probably talk about this more next time we get together, but what is fall? What are the indications on early fall?
Well, again, we haven't talked about feed here today, and of course that's the number one driver of feeder cattle prices, or it should be anyways, as we head into the fall run. And judging by the weather conditions across Western Canada, across the U.S., of course they're way ahead. The corn's in and lots of it. Looking at potentially a record corn crop in the U.S. Of course, things have been so late up here. We're probably looking at plenty of feed grain by the time we get into the fall of 2010. So what does that mean? Those kinds of things tend to be bullish for feeder cattle prices as we head into the year. But so let's leave that as a teaser, Sean, and we'll talk about that next time. And
sounds good.
Take a look at what's going on in those deferred live cattle futures months.
Perfect. Well, and we'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. Thanks a lot.
Okay, great, Sean.